Thank you, everybody. I'll start this meeting now of the Cabinet to be held on the 21st of January here in Huddersfield Town Hall. Welcome to members of the Cabinet, officers, members, and members of the public. We have got two members, I believe, online on Teams. So at the appropriate time, if they wish to speak, I'll invite them in. Right, first off, we have the usual items. Membership of the Cabinet. We're all here bar, unfortunately, Councillor Addy, who is unwell, and Councillor Munir Ahmed, who has needed to take a break due to family reasons. So can I move on from that item to the next item? Minutes of the previous meeting, are they agreed as a correct record? Can I see a show of hands? Thank you. Any declarations of interest from members here? No? Okay. If anything does obviously crop up during the meeting, then please let the clerk have the form at section 3, item 3. Admission of the public. It's all to be held, the whole Cabinet meeting will be held in public, but we have got, for item 8, we have got some private papers, which I will ask now, but I will ask again, have all members of the Cabinet actually read those now? Yeah, thank you. We will assume that we can take the whole of that item in public when we get to it. Deputations and petitions, I believe we have none. Thank you. So we are questions from members of the public. We have one member of the public here who has a question to ask. Welcome to you. Would you like to read out your question?
Yep. So my name's Sarah and I'm here because my mum Janet is a resident at Castle Grange in Newsham. Throughout the consultation period, families were very clear about their fears of privatisation and the impact that would have on their loved ones. These fears have been heightened by Councillor Addy's admission in Cabinet on the 8th of October that Kirklees cannot offer any reassurance in respect of quality of care, staff retention or fees. Addy stated at 50 minutes and 28 seconds, we will, in our negotiations, look to the immediate future, but we can't look beyond that. Nobody has that power. Immediately after trying to reassure councillors that the homes would remain operating as dementia care homes. Can you explain how you intend to build back trust and confidence after such an obvious lack of acknowledgement of these fears? Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. As I've already said, unfortunately, Councillor Addy isn't here today, but I have got a response that she had prepared earlier, which I will read to you. And this is her words. So she says, I have repeatedly said I understand how difficult this situation is for families, as I too have my own mother in care. I feel I have offered as much reassurance as possible that if the homes do transfer, the council will be looking for providers who have experience of running dementia care homes, have a good reputation and a track record of delivering care and support for people with dementia. We have a duty as a council to ensure that all care delivered in Kirklees meets CQC standards, Quality Care Commission standards, and we have a team of experts who work closely with the sector in ensuring care and support is good quality. I would hope that we can build back trust with families. I'm willing to continue to have open dialogue, listen, and meet with families at appropriate times. Thank you. There was a second question, but unfortunately, Avalon Rawling isn't here to ask it, so we will be providing a written response to her. Oh, sorry, supplementary, beg your pardon.
Is it fair to conclude then that Kirklees Council has been at best misleading and at worst dishonest in its consistent statement that it will ensure the continuity of care for residents when Kirklees have no power to do so after the private provider takes over? Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah. Well, in the absence of Councillor Addy, I will have to ask her to provide a written answer to that for you. Thank you. So moving on to questions by elected members, I've been advised that Councillor Lawson has a question, but she's not here. So, Councillor Cooper, you have a question.
Yeah. The decision by scrutiny to request you look again at whether or not to privatise our dementia care homes gives you some time to reconsider this proposal. Next year, with the introduction of the fair funding formula for local government, Kirklees should be better off. And this is an opportunity in the forthcoming budget to not privatise the homes and find the 850,000 needed to bridge the gap, with a view to mainstreaming and maintaining the homes under council control. Councillor Addy has expressed her opinion that this is something she doesn't want to do, and I'm sure that view is shared by the rest of the Cabinet. And I don't believe that you actually have to do this. I think it's clear that there is also no enthusiasm or support for this proposal from the other political groups in the council, the majority of councillors. Trying to push this through at this time, in this way, will undermine people's faith in local politics and in the way that we are governed. Do you agree with me that it's time to abandon these proposals to privatise these care homes?
I might ask Graham Turner to come in on a bit on the budget issue potentially, but I will take this and say, basically, this is coming back to Cabinet next time. It's not here today. We are in the process of considering what the call-in by scrutiny could tell us. We are providing the additional information that scrutiny called for, and we really can't say anything until we actually meet as a Cabinet again with that report in front of us. I don't know if there's anything that Graham would want to add in terms of the budget issue, but you don't have to, Graham, if you don't feel it appropriate.
It's fine. Obviously, if we take this out of the budget, we have to find savings from somewhere else, which will be a challenge. The budget is stretched, as we well know, so it will be a challenge. And it will be a challenge going forward, because obviously if we do it this year, we may do it next year, rolling on. So it will be a challenge to find that extra savings, and we have to put it in the draft budget. You're right. We may be better off next year. Not we will be. We may be better off. We're a long way off seeing what the fair funding package will reveal next year. And in a world that's pretty uncertain, both economically, micro level and macro level, we can't guarantee that next year we will be better off. The government has promised to look at a fair funding scheme and improve the offer for local government, but we can't guarantee that. So we have to live in the here and now. The here and now is to keep these care homes, we would have to find a significant amount of savings from somewhere else in the local authority, and then we'd have to wait and see next year. And we may be in the same situation next year, depending on what the fair funding scheme turns out to be, and if they can in fact roll one out. As I said, we live in very uncertain times at the moment, as I said, so we shall have to wait and see. We can't hope that next year's going to be better. Let's work with the here and now, and let's see what happens as we get nearer next year's settlement.
Supplementary, Councillor Cooper.
So we're aware of basically what the gap is that we've got to cover. It's about £850,000 per year, and so. Obviously, that's not covered in the year coming ahead, but could be in following years. And fair funding, we know, is coming, and the expectation is from people who know about it that we will be better off than the districts and the counties. I understand that there's nothing that's written down as such, but we do know that that's the intention of government, and we've been given that indication. So the question really is, if we may have a decision that we want to keep these homes in the public sector to maintain the standards that people are used to and match their needs, that we've got to find that 850k in the forthcoming years. Now that could be met by a use of reserves, stretching the capital plan. Whatever it happens to be, if you gave that direction to officers and say this is something that politically we don't believe in, we don't want to pursue, it doesn't match our values, then you could do that, and you could save these homes with it using the budget process if you give that direction to officers.
I'll come back and perhaps Graham might like also to say something about the reserves, but can I just say, in terms of the fair funding, I mean, this year we have already received additional funding from the government in October. Well, it was announced in October, and we think we've received it now. It isn't sufficient still to meet not just the needs of these 2 care homes, but all of the care homes. We're already having to find ways of managing the budget for adult social care with less money than we really need to cover all of our responsibilities under that in that service. We can't be assured in any shape or form that what we will get in the fair funding will be any increase on what the increase that they've already given us. I sincerely hope it is, and we will be lobbying and arguing for that to be the case. But can I just again just ask Graham Turner perhaps to say something about the use of reserves?
Right. You can always use reserves. You can use reserves as long as you want until you run out of them. Our reserve position is quite tenuous as it is, and it's only right that we keep that minimum level of reserves, because we have to satisfy the auditors that we have that level of reserves. So if we take being cynical, if you like, if we take the money out to do this out of reserves, somebody else might want to take some more money out of reserves to do something that they want to do, because there's lots of sorry? Exactly. So we've made the decision to bolster our reserves because they barely meet our minimum requirement, and we have to make tough decisions. And I'm not sure, this is a revenue cost. I don't see how the capital plan can be affected. Well, how do you do it? Are you saying we borrow the 850,000 to subsidise a revenue account? Because that's what capital is. Capital is borrowing. So what are we going to do? So we would have to take somewhere in the region of about 11 million quid out of the capital plan to save the money of the repayments on that. I'm not talking about reserves now. I've explained the reserve position. We're marginal on reserves. We need to bolster our reserve position because we have to satisfy our auditors that we have a reserve position that supports the work of the council. You talked about capital. Would you have to take out about 10 or 11 million quid with the capital spending? Because borrowing costs about 80 grand per £1 million. So to save that, you'd have to take 10 million or 11 million pounds out, so you weren't spending that money on that interest. So that's a nonsense. Sorry.
All right, thank you. I've got a question from Councillor Sheard, who is online. Councillor Sheard, do you want to put your question?
Thank you. There are over 124 war graves buried in Dewsbury Cemetery. The Law Commission is proposing authorities reuse war graves if there's a lack of space to bury people. It is a downright disgrace and a stain on our nation, and that propositions to dig up graves are being proposed. These people have served our country badly and deserve to rest in peace. Given that Dewsbury is facing a crisis for the lack of spaces for graves, will the Cabinet right to object to the Law Commission's proposal And will you support the petition that's been started by community activists to stop the Law Commission's plans? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Sheard. I'll take that. Just to say that we have no idea, no intention of reusing any grave, war grave or otherwise. I'm not aware of the specific war graves that you're referring to, but we have no intention of allowing the reuse of graves at all. No, we won't be particularly signing the petition because the petition is not the best way to influence government, I don't believe, and it'll be far better to respond to the consultation. Thank you. Have you got a supplementary?
I don't, but I have a second question, if that's okay.
Another question, did you say?
Yes.
I'm sorry, your microphone or whatever isn't very clear, but yes, go ahead with your second question.
So since the closing of the Nab Lane tip, the Dewsbury and Weaving Lane have started to see waiting times of up to 45 minutes with traffic backlogging all the way through Saddletown. With the proposed closure of the road leading to Weaving Lane from the bypass due to the transparent upgrade, what action is the council taking to make sure congestion through Saddletown leading to Weaving Lane and Dewsbury tip is reduced?
Are you going to take that one?
Can do.
Councillor Crook will answer that on behalf of Councillor Ahmed.
Thank you, Councillor Sheard. So unfortunately, the Trans-Pennine Route Upgrade Programme, which is an £11.5 billion programme of investment in our region and something that I'm very much supportive of, will cause some disruption during its progress. It's going to take a number of years and we are going to have to bear with certain level of inconvenience in order that we benefit regionally from the enormous investment that confers on us. The Transport Works Act order, which controls or allows the TRU programme to control things like road closures, means that it's not actually in the hands of Kirklees as a highways authority to prevent those closures, although we do work closely with the TRU to try and minimise the disruption to residents and ensure that the benefit doesn't cause too much disruption during the works. With respect to queuing to get into the household waste recycling centres, that's something that I am asking officers to review, because we can expect a certain amount of queuing as we use the services that are available, but if that queuing extends beyond what is a safe limit, then we need to be aware of that. I don't have any more detail to add to that at the moment. Thanks.
Have you a supplementary to that question, Councillor Sheard?
Yes. Really quick one. Was a traffic management assessment conducted for the Dewsbury tip when Nab Lane was being proposed to close? Because we're obviously going to expect some form of increase in traffic volumes to Weaving Lane. So did the council conduct a traffic management assessment before making the decision to close Nab Lane?
Sorry, so you're asking me if we did a traffic management assessment at the Weaving Lane site consequential to the closure of the Nab Lane site. I mean, I'm aware that there have been changes at the Weaving Lane site where we've been able to benefit from betterment as a result of the Trans-Pennine Route upgrade, for example. So that site has changed in capacity in terms of throughput. I am confident that traffic implications of any change both to the capacity of that site and implications on that site through the closure of the other site have been taken into account, but I don't have those details to hand. With that sort of technical question, if you email it through, I'm able to get a technical response from officers and perhaps provide you with a more useful response, but that's all I've got from here. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you. If that's all the member questions at this point in the agenda, I'll move on to the substantive items. I've got one or two councillors who have indicated that they wish to speak on the substantive items, and I'll ask you to put your questions at the time. If there's any councillor who wishes to raise another question, then please just indicate by putting your microphone on at the appropriate time. So I'll move on to our first item, which is our cultural heart, part of the Huddersfield Blueprint, Phase 2, Gateway 3. And I'll ask Councillor Graham Turner to present this.
Chair, thank you. This is the latest update on the progress of our cultural heart. The Cabinet understands the development of our cultural heart has been designed to be built in phases. This allows flexibility to make changes and bring the various parts of it to Cabinet as and when it is needed. Phase one is well underway and is progressing well. We're now talking to potential operators of the food court, and discussions have started about maximising the use of the external event space. So we now need to turn our attention to phase two. And we are now able to start the process of developing the designs of phase two and start to carry out pre-construction works. As always with any report on the cultural art, this is very detailed and very long. Today I am seeking approval for the 11 recommendations that are contained in the report. I'm sure you've all read the recommendations, so I'm not going to go through each one in detail. In essence, this report seeks to move forward on phase two and to reallocate some of the budget to facilitate other costs as we move forward. The overall budget remains the same, and we remain totally committed to delivering the whole of the Cultural Heart project within that budget envelope. As with any large-scale project, sometimes there are opportunities to seek out external funding, and we're constantly looking at all opportunities to lever in external funding for specific parts of the project which could take some pressure off the overall budget. Whilst there is some way to go, we have made good progress, and this report moves us another step nearer our goal of creating a modern, vibrant town centre. So can I thank officers for producing today's report? These things are complicated, and ensuring the report has a level of detail required is of no mean feat. I would also like to thank all the companies involved in the current phase. It's a challenging site, and it's not easy to remove the old buildings while protecting the listed elements. Thanks must go to our principal contractor, BAM, who have made me very welcome when I have been on site, and they have also worked with us and the media to send out positive messages about the project. They are also engaged with several other groups and organisations who have an interest in the project. They are a fantastic example of how to engage with the public whilst carrying out a major development. Chair, can I ask Cabinet to approve today's report?
Thank you, Councillor Turner, and I will just ask again. We don't need to move into private session because you have already read the private papers, and we don't need to discuss those. They are just therefore to provide information for the rest of the report. I will. We have got Councillor Munro who wishes to ask a question.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a great believer that the right decisions should be made for the right reasons. So the offer of a combined museum and gallery benefits neither. The original plans, because the original plans provided for separate buildings, will placing both in the same building not reduce their significance, as space will be greatly reduced.
Question. You're right. Originally, we did intend having a different layout. We had plans for all sorts of things from day one. Being pragmatic, some of those plans have had to change to reflect the fact that we are working to a fixed budget. So those plans have changed, and the phasing's changed, and the layout's changed slightly. A combined museum and gallery, it doesn't make too much of a difference to the space, because the initial designs that we've created, the architects have been very clever, and they've maximised the museum space enormously by using walls, etc. So the museum space is larger than we anticipated by use of these clever tricks of the architects to maximise the space. The gallery will obviously be upstairs. One of the interesting things around the gallery is it's quite complicated to build a modern gallery, because you have to put in a significant amount of mitigations so that you can protect, if we were to have an exhibition of something world famous or some some really important works of art from around the country or around the world, we have to ensure that those are protected. So there has to be certain systems in there to ensure, in the worst case scenario, that they are protected from fire and that the atmosphere protects those. So putting it on top of the museum actually makes sense, because we can make that a contained space. Would it be better to have a separate museum and gallery in an ideal world? Of course it would, but that would have had a huge impact on the revenue account and had a huge impact on the overall budget. Times have changed since we started this, so in effect we cut our costs accordingly to keep within that budget envelope.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Munro, have you got a supplementary?
Supplementary, yeah. So what are the council doing with all the collections?
As and when the museum and gallery are open, the collections will be displayed in the spaces within those museums and gallery. We don't display all our collection at the moment. We do have some of it in secure storage. So we will display the maximum amount we can in those buildings. And as we do now, we will change that around and have different focus on different items at certain times of the year or as we develop. And as I say, hopefully with a modern gallery that is designed to protect serious works of art, we may be able to attract some really serious, important art into Huddersfield, which is something we haven't been able to do in the past. So I'm looking forward to having queues of people to see an exhibition of, I don't know, Picasso, Monet, who knows, somebody famous, some really, really important works of art, because we'll be able to protect it. And I think there'll be demand for that sort of thing. So that's one of the things we want to do, is widen it out, not just our art, but look to being able to attract really important world-influencing pieces of art into Huddersfield.
Thank you. Is there a further question, Councillor Munro?
I do have another question, thank you. So the council was appointed guardian of Tolson as it was gifted to the people of Huddersfield. So closing the museum does not bode well with the public. Please tell me how this council can be trusted by the public when you're closing the much-loved Tolson Museum against thousands of people's wishes.
Having looked at this report, there's no mention of closing the Tolson in this report. If we decide to close Tolson, that's a decision for the future. There's no, at this moment in time, there's no decision to close Tolson because we haven't got an alternative.
Supplementary. Well, the decision to close was made in 2016.
There is no decision, official decision, to close Tolson. There's a covenant on it which restricts its use anyway, but at this moment in time we haven't got a definite decision to close Tolson. As and when the new museum is open, then the position of Tolson will be reviewed.
Thank you, Councillor Munro and Councillor Turner. I mean, can I just add, as as I've got the portfolio for culture, I think that both the museum and the art gallery will really both benefit from this new space, regardless of the actual size of it. The conditions of it, the fact that it's purpose-built will provide much better exhibition space, much more accessibility to particularly the museum. And as Councillor Turner has already said, we will be able to bring out some of our more prestigious pieces of artwork from time to time. We will be able to host exhibitions. I have to say, our art gallery team are already, unfortunately, perhaps not unfortunately, they are having to exhibit some of our best works elsewhere in the country. Other people are benefiting from things that we should be seeing here in Huddersfield, in Kirklees, for the benefit of our residents. Much of our art collection is well renowned, not just nationally but also internationally, and it will be great to attract all the people that are interested in that collection here into Kirklees, into Huddersfield in the future. I say within a purpose-built and designed art space. The other thing I will say about Tolson is it's as Councillor Turner has said, there is a covenant on that building. That building will need to be repurposed in some way. We are not actually closing the building at all. We are moving the collection into a more accessible and purpose-built and better designed space to be able to show our collections. And just as an aside, it is going to take 4 years for the museum team which I have to say isn't an awful lot of people, but it will take them 4 years to pack up and catalogue and in some cases, repair and preserve all our collection to bring across into the new building. So it's a massive piece of work that needs to be undertaken to do this, but one that I think we will all benefit from in the long run. And I really, along with Councillor Turner, really look forward to seeing both our museum collections and our art collections here in the centre of town. So I'm happy to second this report. Can I see a show of hands as to people in favour of that? Thank you very much. That is carried. Moving on then to item 9, which is surplus property disposals. Councillor Turner.
Thank you, Chair. Chair, this report before us today seeks Cabinet approval to dispose of the assets contained within this report. This is in line with our asset disposal policy and our capital receipts policy. As you will note, there is a mixture of assets to be brought to the market and quite a few freehold revisions. Disposing of the freehold to sitting tenants is the right thing to do, as it gives certainty to those tenants, and I believe morally it's also the right thing to do. We have received several comments from affected ward councillors, and where a response was appropriate, they have received one in advance of today's meeting. There was one public objection to the sale of the former Cumbersall First School, and again, the member of the public has received a detailed response. His objection having been dealt with in a professional manner, it has been decided the objection is not strong enough to prevent the sale of the site. We are optimistic that this site, whilst challenging, will be brought forward for a small-scale housing scheme, subject to the relevant planning permissions being granted, which will help us address our housing shortage in the borough. Chair, can I ask Cabinet to approve this report?
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I believe Councillor Smage, who is online, and also it appears Councillor Sheard, who's online, wish to ask a question. But it's Councillor Smage first, please.
Thank you. I hope that you can hear me. I'm in Bristol Library where the Friends have an event this afternoon. I did put objections in for the sale of this land, but was told, as other councillors, that they would be in the public report, but they are not. So I'm going to expand on my points. I am objecting to the sale of the land at Rakes Lane, Bristol. I'm presuming the council would sell the land as being suitable for development because of the inclusion in your current local plan. The area of land at Rakes Lane is not suitable for development and made no sense being part of that local plan. Access is not easy to the land, the mount is cobbled, and Rakes Lane is not a through road. This would mean that even more traffic would go through Fieldhead Estate, something that estate roads are not suitable for. There is no clear access to high streets without affecting other properties, including a listed building. The land is also partly in the Bristol Conservation Area and provides a natural separation between the centre of Bristol, Mount Top and Fieldhead. The proposal to simply sell the land means that the council cannot preserve the green space on Rakes Lane that is within the conservation area mentioned in your local plan. This green space area of the land also abuts the top part of the old cobbled path from the Mount to Middlegate. With all these concerns, why would the council feel that selling the land would realise its value? Selling this land with unrestricted use for development would affect the character and appearance of this particular historic part of Bristol. I would ask that the council retain the land as arable land within its own portfolio and preserve the character of this part of Bristol for the benefit of its residents. Thank you.
Turner.
Thank you, Councillor Smage. I hope your event's going well. You did put an objection in, well, you put a comment in. We didn't provide you with an answer because we thought you was more of a comment than a question. So you're the only one we didn't reply to because it wasn't clear whether you actually wanted to respond to it. We felt it was more like a comment. And if we should have responded to you directly, I apologise. All the assets within this disposal policy and this piece of this report are in effect sold as is. They're not sold with planning permission. We don't have any plans to look to get planning permission before we sell any of these. That is up to the buyer. So if the buyer buys it, it's entirely up to them what they do with it. That unrestricted access realises a maximum amount of capital receipt, and they have to deal with the planning permission. And any issues around road access or etc., conservationists, that will all be dealt with as per normal through the planning process. So it shouldn't restrict us selling this land. You say keep it in our portfolio. We have for a number of years tried to dispose of what you call arable land, our farming stock. This sort of came into fashion in councils after the war, where councils were running farms, etc., to try and feed the nation. It is my opinion, and officers, that we're not in the farming business, and we should, as swiftly as possible, and where appropriate, dispose of all our farming stock. We're not farmers. We're better off passing that on to the people who are experts, and that's long-term policy to dispose of that. So we wouldn't wish to keep it as arable land because we don't want to be in the business of grazing. It doesn't attract significant amount of income, and as I say, it's better to let the farmers and the tenants decide their own future with their own land.
Is there a supplementary, Councillor Smage?
Just on the first point, the councillors were informed that their comments or questions would be included in the public report, and this turned out not to be the case. So I made comments in relation to my objections, as I was informed in email that they would be made public. I do feel that this area of land is extremely problematic for anyone, and that I understand about the planning permission, etc. But just disposing of land for disposing of land's sake is unfair to the residents of Birstall. Thank you.
I'm not quite sure that needed a reply, but...
Well, I'll do one briefly. It's always difficult when you dispose of an asset, whether it be a building or land, because somebody always has a passion for it, somebody lives nearby, or somebody has an interest in it, doesn't want you to do that. But you say it's unfair on the residents of Birstall. It's probably unfair on the residents of a lot more people to sit on a piece of land that generates no income, that has absolutely no use to us, where we can dispose of it and get a capital receipt that can be included in our budget spending plans. So, as I said, we should not be in the business of being tenant, in effect, owning tenanted land. That's better in the hands of those who are experts. Once they have the freehold revision, as we heard several of these freehold revisions, they become the master's own destiny. There was a debate only a few months ago about the inequalities and the inefficiencies and how unfair owning freeholds was. So as I said earlier, morally, I think it's right that we pass these, do those freehold reversions, and where possible, sell the land to either sitting tenant. If there's a tenant, you may well look to buy it. But I think that's the right thing to do. We should not be operating grazing land, in my opinion. With more important things to do in this authority and more important issues to deal with than whether somebody's making sure that somebody pays a minimal rent that probably in some cases nearly costs to collect as we get. So I think it's the right thing to do and the right policy.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Councillor Sheard.
Thank you. I'm just strongly objecting as well to the proposal of the fields at Rakes Lane in Birstall. I believe, again, this decision is another short-sighted one and fails to account for long-term value that the land holds for our community. As Councillor Smage has just said, the land is unsustainable for development, despite its inclusion in the local plan. Access to the site is inherently problematic. Rakes Lane isn't a through road, again, as Councillor Smage has said. The Mount's cobbled. Developing this area is inevitably going to increase the volume of traffic on Rakes Lane to the Fieldhead estate, whose roads are already ill-equipped to handle such a burden. There is no clear access to High Street without significantly impacting nearby properties, including a listed building. The disruption of a development on this land, if the council was to sell it off, would cause residents and historic environment. I mean, it can't be overstated. It's going to be a massive impact to hundreds of people. Additionally, part of this land lies within the Birstall Conservation Area. Selling the land risks erasing natural division between Birstall and Fieldhead. That maintains character and integrity of Birstall's identity. There was a concern not long ago, actually, that we didn't have enough green fields and enough trees. Instead, now we're wanting to get rid of them. Councillor Turner, your response to Councillor Smage, you said the land should be given to the people and farmers. It's better to give it to an expert. Well, I'm sorry, farmers can't farm no more because you're taxing the hell out of them. The council's proposal to sell the land without restrictions disregards its significance as part of Birstall's heritage. It contributes to the area character of the area. It contributes to our village and includes green space by the cobbled road, as highlighted in the local plan. The land borders historic cobbled paths, the Mount to Middlegate, and routes cherished by local residents who have an absolute passion for maintaining old areas of Birstall. Selling the land is not going to realise its value. Instead, it's going to instead it's going to show a significant long-term community benefit for short-term financial gain. But once it's lost to development, the historic and natural resource that it provides, it can't be reclaimed, it's gone. So really, just to sum up, I think the Cabinet needs to go away and rethink this decision and retain the land as arable green space within its portfolio, preserving it and safeguarding the heritage, character and quality of life for Birstall's residents, now and in the future. Thank you.
Councillor Turner, do you wish to respond?
Oh, yes. I refer to you my previous answers on the state of the land, etc. What I would say is, when we're discussing a small parcel of land in your part of the world, just try and drag national politics into it is beneath you. I think it's contemptible. We're not taxing the hell out of the farmers. The tax doesn't even come in until 2026, and the last time I looked at my diary, it was 2025. There was a net gain for farmers in the last budget, when the government gave them £500 million extra investment into farming against what may be at the best £150 million return when the land tax is introduced after 2026. So to say we're taxing them to hell is something of a statement that is unjustified, and it should not be brought when we're discussing council issues. Trying to score cheap political points is beneath you.
Thank you, Councillor Turner. Have you got a response, a supplementary, I should say, Councillor Sheard?
I don't think it's dragging national politics into it. There's many farmers across Birstall and Berkshire and the whole of Kirklees. So if Labour's taxing them, then I think it needs to be brought up when it's coming to a matter of council. Thank you.
I think I would concur with Councillor Turner that it is a national issue. It's not Kirklees that's imposing any tax, nor will we benefit from it. I very much doubt. I'm prepared to, I'm willing to second this report. Councillor Turner has, Councillor, that's an old hand, I believe, Councillor Sheard. Yes, thank you.
Yes, sorry.
Yeah, it's okay. Councillor Turner has moved it. I will second it. In doing so, I'll just ensure that the Cabinet acknowledge those two objections that we have from Councillor Smage and Councillor Sheard. Can I see those in favour? Thank you. So that is carried. We'll move on to the next item, which is item 10, which is Kirklees School funding arrangements for the financial year 25-26. Councillor Turner.
Sorry, jumped ahead himself here. Chair, so this is the annual report into the dedicated school funding arrangements for 25-26 and is a detailed breakdown of the school's budget for the coming year. This has been discussed by the senior leadership team and the relevant portfolio holders. It's also been approved by the schools forum. This year, the new government has simplified the report ever so slightly by rolling together some grants in the school block. In previous years, these grants have been separate. We are still seeing a decrease in children entering the school system due to the continuing reduction in birth rate, which has resulted in some schools reducing their PAN as detailed in the report. Chair, can I ask the Cabinet accept today's report?
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I will second that report. I don't believe we have any councillors now wishing to ask any questions or online. No. Obviously, schools funding isn't really an important issue. So, in some people's mind. So I will ask Cabinet to show agreement for that those recommendations, or that recommendation. Thank you. That is carried. Moving on to item 11. Approval of acceptance and expenditure of external grant funding on preliminary development enabling works. I'm sure there could have been a snappier title to that. Councillor Turner.
We don't do snappy titles in Economic Growth and Region. Chair, this report seeks Cabinet for approval to accept and spend £1.25 million from the One Public Estate Brownfield Land Release Fund. This work to enable work to be carried out on estate buildings. Estate buildings is one of our most iconic buildings. We have been investigating alternative use for the building, but it has been earmarked for high-end flats. However, the cost of transforming the building into flats has so far proved to be problematic due to the high costs involved and given the nature of the building and its listed status. Using this external funding to fund preliminary work will help bridge the funding gap. However, it won't eliminate the gap, but it will bring the gap down and increase the chances of finding further external funding to complete the project. The report contains the scale of the work that this funding will cover, and I would like to thank Wicker for providing £60,000 to cover the revenue costs, to cover the professional fees, as the Brownfield Fund does not provide any revenue funding, as it all has to be spent on capital works. We aim to be in contract by the end of March, so the work can commence later this year. A key part of the Huddersfield Blueprint is our desire to create much more town centre living and to repurpose our iconic list of buildings to create high-quality living spaces. We want to create a modern town centre where people want to live, work and play and reflect the changing nature of our towns. So, Chair, can I ask Cabinet to approve this report and to authorise the relevant officers to enter into contract negotiations?
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I don't know if Councillor Crook might want to say something briefly. No, thank you. Just on the provision of additional homes in Kirklees, which would be great. I'm happy to second this, and in doing so, I just want to say that this is a really exciting, or can be a really exciting project, and one that we should really help to get off the ground. It is an iconic building. It's a beautiful building. It is so well located. It will be excellent accommodation for people to live in the town centre. So with that, recommend that mover and seconder. Can I see members of the Cabinet in favour? Thank you very much. That's passed or carried. And then on to the last item, which is the item 12, half-yearly monitoring report on Treasury management activities 24-25, reference to Council. Thank you. Councillor Turner.
Yeah, Chair, sorry it's me again, but I will be brief on this one. This report in the Council's Treasury management activities is here for noting. The Council has adopted the SIPR Corporate Practice for Treasury Management. GCAC went through this report in detail in December 24. So, Chair, can I ask Cabinet to note this report?
Thank you, Councillor Turner. I'll second that. Cabinet members, please could you show hands? Thank you. That's carried. Thank you. And that is the end of the meeting. Thank you very much for attending. Thank you.